Hello, and welcome to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway podcast. That's right. Your host and tour guide is Scott Prevett, a healer, hypnotist, and a magician. And your bus driver is Jason Gobelli, also a hypnotist, an entrepreneur, and a spiritual guide. Disclaimer, neither Jason, Scott, or any of our guests here today are licensed professional psychologists or psychiatrists. So please don't make any changes to any medication or treatments that you are currently on based on the conversation that you hear here today. Just hop on the bus and enjoy the ride. Trip with us on the Inner Revelation bus. That's right.
Hi, I'm Jason. Welcome back to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway. We are excited today because we are going to North Carolina and great guests, aren't we, Scott?
Heck yeah, we've got a great guest lined up for you guys today.
That's right. We have the wonderful, the great Matthew McMillan. Matthew, how are you, my brother?
Oh, I'm awesome, man.
All right, all
Good to
right.
see you.
So let's
Good
get
to
this
see
party
you.
rolling, Matthew. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, like you said, Jason, I'm Matthew McMillan. I'm a licensed addiction specialist and mental health counselor, and also an executive coach and hypnotherapist.
Nice, nice. So what are you all about? So what's this about? What do you specialize in? I heard you say you specialize in addictions and you're a hypnotherapist and like tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I got into hypnotherapy, Jason. I'm glad you asked because of working with addicts and alcoholics all my career. Um, there's so much trauma. And so I use hypnotherapy for trauma, for PTSD trauma. And then I've been using it a lot lately for, helping people anchor good positive states into helping them stay positive in their recovery. So it helps it easier to get in and stay, on the path that they want to stay in recovery and those kind of things. It's kind of what I do.
Nice, Matthew. So are you an addict in recovery?
No, I'm not, but I have it in my family system, so it's,
Okay.
I understand it pretty well.
So does that make you one of those codependents?
No, I'm not a codependent because I studied right away in psychology and understood what that was. So I didn't get into that pattern, but I have a lot of those people I treat actually.
So I know that in this type of field there's a lot of trauma and the success rate's not very high. So what do you say that makes a difference or what's the main thing that makes a difference in, you know, helping people get away from the ties that bind them?
Well, I think the big thing, and this is why I got into doing hypnotherapy, is really uh, people have so much trauma. And now, I hypothesized about 20 years ago that a lot of addiction was hidden trauma. Now we have the proof from the neuroscience and the different work from the veterans and those people coming back from war. A lot of times, though, people don't think of trauma. They think of trauma and they think of like war veterans and people like that, but they don't think about themselves. And we all go through challenges in life. And so I try to help my clients understand it could be a big T trauma or it could be a small T trauma. And, it's really about how we process and interpret something, the meaning we put to things, because we're just meaning making machines.
Nice, nice. So, um, some of the things that you've been talking about and some of the ways you've been going through, you've obviously got these different techniques that you've had. When did you have like this aha moment? Like, I'm going to be able to help people with some of this stuff. I mean, you said it's in your family. What was that all about, and how did that aha moment come about?
Well, you know how one of the things that we deal with in our work is resistance. And when people resist things, it persists. And early on in my career, I studied psychology in undergrad school, and then I went into grad school. And when I did my internship, I was working with domestic violence abusers. I really was fascinated by anger and how people deal with their anger. And what was interesting is that I really was resisting working with addicts and alcoholics. I didn't want to work with them actually, because I've been, I saw the damaging effects in my family. I haven't said this publicly, but my grandfather was a severe alcoholic, and he basically died from alcohol dementia. He just kind of went crazy. My dad didn't drink, so, but he had a lot of what I call the isms of alcoholism. So, um, you know, the inability to deal with your emotions well and things like that because he didn't learn those skills. And so, when I was doing my internship at Milwaukee Women's Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I was doing grad school, um, they kept sending me all the alcoholics and addicts. I just wanted to work with angry people. I know that sounds strange to people. But, and then I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I'm supposed to be here. Maybe this is, because people kept saying, you're so easy to talk to. And you seem to get this, where I've been to so many other people and they just judge me. You don't seem to judge me. And I said, well, that's not my nature to judge people. I mean, um, and at that time, there was in the addiction field in general, we were supposed to be very aggressive and confront people's denial. And that didn't work for my personality. So I kind of started to come up with my own strategies of how to meet people where they were at, kind of join with their resistance, is what I call it, and then move them where they needed to go. And that worked really well. And um, and so then when I started into um, after graduate school, I moved to Wisconsin. I mean, from Wisconsin to North Carolina, and worked in an addiction treatment center. And then I actually developed a program for a local hospital here in Greensboro, for alcohol and drugs, dual diagnosis, and ran that for 7.5 years. So
Wow.
that's kind of my history.
So you got a lot going on here. Let me ask you a question though. Is it just alcohol and other drugs, or is it also the other forms of addiction that you deal with too? Let's say phone, shopping, gambling,
Yeah.
sex, all
Yeah.
this other stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't addiction raise his head in other areas very
Oh
often?
yeah. Oh yeah. Sexual addiction. A lot of people, don't want to admit that goes on, but that's really strong and can destroy families. Gambling. I mean, gambling. It's it's getting worse actually because now we've got all these online betting and game gambling stuff. I mean, I have a client right now that's in recovery, about 5 months now. And, I had to challenge him to look at the gambling addiction as much as the alcoholism. Um,
And don't people look at it differently because it doesn't have that physical dependence? Or is there a physical dependence when you get that rush from hitting that big ticket, cashing that ticket? I mean,
yeah, yeah, exactly, Jason. It's the rush. Um, One way that I explain addictions is to people is that, say, like alcohol and drugs, the addiction is not to the substance, it's what the substance does for the person, how it alters their mood, their mind, or their state of being. And so you could do that through, I mean, early on in my career, I worked with a lot of eating disorder clients. You could do that through not eating or eating, binging, purging. You could do that through gambling. Um, you know, Honestly, in a lot of ways. And then, one of the things that I teach, because I work with adolescents up, is I teach young people that, this thing is created by gamers. And what's the goal of the game? To keep you in the game. So they know how to ping your brain in such a way that makes it addictive to go back and constantly look at your phone. And some of the research I saw was really powerful is that this thing can be as addictive as crack cocaine. And every time you get a notice or a ping, that can distract you up to 10 minutes. So think about a student trying to study in either high school or college, and take a test, and every 5 minutes they're getting a ping. I mean, and that hour is gone. And then they wonder why they can't study. It's rewiring their brain. It really is.
Or it's kind of chasing that dopamine hit, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So,
And we've gotten so addicted to chasing that dopamine hit, you know, in so many ways.
so let me ask you a question. Crossing addictions from one addiction to another to all these things, wouldn't you say that possibly that the people that do that have some things in common? Those who get addicted.
Yeah, there's patterns, there's things. Um, again, you know, if you look at like the hidden trauma aspect, they're trying to alter how they feel, how they are. A lot of times they're self-medicating or numbing to not feel the pain of the trauma. And, you know, they keep suppressing it and pushing it down. And that's one way to do it. So you see, not only do you have the addictive cycle of the drug, but then you have the cycle of them wanting to escape that pain and those memories.
And that said, I notice we keep referring to trauma, but
Hmm.
then there are those who are addicted who don't seem to have much trauma. So I'm wondering if it has to do with sensitivity and maybe that a person that gets addictive is susceptible to be more sensitive than other people.
Well, I hear what you're saying. There was a theory for a long time, that it was like a personality structure. Um, I think that's been debunked mainly, but really um, it's more about resiliency skills, like how people learn to move through things, you know, instead of just staying stuck in it. And and it's also, it's, you know, some of it's modeling. Like you've got generations of people that have watched their parents do this behavior. I mean, I have a client right now that was sent to me because they tested positive at work after an accident. And so you know, they want to break that cycle so they could keep their job, but their whole family smokes pot and and drinks. And so, you know, it's also sometimes so much in a family that it just gets modeled all the time, that that's the only way we can cope. And, you know, we say in the addiction field, there is no chemical solution to life problems. and and teaching yourself how to work through problems without relying on something external. You know, I know you're really faith-based, and one way to think about addiction is it's a love and trust relationship with an object versus a love and trust relationship with ourself and a God of our understanding or a higher power, however you want to word that. So, you know, we're getting that relationship mixed up.
So then we are, you're saying that we can be victims of our environment or we take control of that?
What do you mean? Say more on
Well,
that.
you said that, you know, a lot of these people when they go home, they're in it. Their whole family's involved in you know in whatever drug it is, like marijuana, you said. And I'm
Hmm.
saying, does that mean that we become victims of the environment that we get in? We're modeling that behavior and we become like victims of our environment.
Well, it's the old nature versus nurture versus nature question, I think. You know, it comes down to, you know, kids model their parents, whether they want to accept that or not. I mean, you'll grow up older and you'll be like, oh, that's my dad. You know, where did that come from? Um, you know, so it's we model what we see, repeat what we see. So, you know, and if we're around that a lot, it's a lot harder to get options to see that there's other options. Um, and uh, a lot of folks, they also may not have a lot of support. They may not know how to build good relationships. So, you know, the other part of addiction is the social aspect. Like they may go to the bar or places like that just to fit in, to feel like they're a part of something. the need to belong is really strong. And so we'll do a lot to try to belong. Even and if you're taking something that's addictive, you may start out with just, hey, I want to fit in and belong, but then it hooks you. And you're fighting that process too.
Nice. Scott, do you have any questions?
Sure, I do. Sorry about that. I was on mute.
That's okay.
My question is more along the lines of what you've got all this going on right now with this. What's in the works? What do you have planned for the future?
Well, what I have planned is I'm working on creating a program that people can jump into. One of the things that I believe is we all have a leader within, and we need to tap into that again. And sometimes we missed it when we were really young. So when we're doing work as a hypnotherapist, we may be going back to really childhood places and let them reconnect to that part again and really get empowered. I have a book that I've been working on, and I feel like the book's writing me sometimes. But anybody that's written a book knows what a challenge it can be, to try to convey what's in your head, out to where people can understand it. But one of the things that I recognized a long time ago is that we get into these mind loops, and one of the mind loops is asking the question why, because why takes you back to the past all the time, and you're trying to look at the past to move forward, and look at the past to figure out what that the reason and the causation, but that doesn't make you change your behavior. What makes you change your behavior is what you do now. So my book is called Stop Whying and Start Whatting, Breaking Free of Mind Loops to Have a Present-Centered Life. And
Nice.
And so I'm working on that. And then I have a daughter with special needs, and that's the other part of my history and career is I really had to figure out ways to help her get grounded. She would have emotional meltdowns like an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. And she has sensory processing disorder, like the seams in her clothing could bother her and so on. And so I I had to find a way to get her grounded and get her to be able to deal with that anxiety. So I came up with a protocol now that I call the Gabby protocol, based on her, that I learned when I had a breakthrough moment with her when being a parent, you get to a point where you about lose your stuff. And that was where the breakthrough moment came. So again, I think, the mind is just a fascinating place. And the more that we can help people understand it, and I call it mind shift mastery, the more that they can shift their mind, they change their life. And we know that as hypnotherapists, that we have a power tool to really help do that. And what I really learned in studying hypnosis, as long as I have and practicing it, is it's more how the mind works and how things really work in the mind versus the theories that we used to base a lot of psychology on. And I hate to tell that on my field, but that's true.
So Matthew, what is the Gabby protocol?
Yeah, I knew you were probably going to ask. Let me tell you the impact of it. And I know it's like one of those infomercials, everybody's different. But my daughter was on 8 medications, trying to get her grounded, trying to get her to sleep and regulate her mood and things like that. And once I started to teach her what I call self-rescue skills, how to ground into your body, and so your mind and your body get in synchronicity again, then she went from 8 medications to 1. And that one medication that I kept her on was because she has epilepsy and she has seizures. But the Gabby protocol was, like I said, it came when, because of her sensory overload, she would also not be able to regulate how loud she would speak or how she would process something. So sometimes it's a modulation thing in the brain where like the volume of the TV could be the same every day, but one day it's too loud, one day it's too soft. So one night I had a really busy day seeing clients that come home, and she's in her hour and a half, 2 hour like meltdown. And I went up stairs and I thought, okay, I've got to break her out of this. So I matched her volume and she was yelling at me. So I matched her volume. And what that did is just escalate the conflict even bigger. And so I call it divine intervention. Just it wasn't me that came up with it. It's just a breakthrough. Is I closed my eyes and I needed to ground myself. So I closed my eyes and I just started with my hands like this at the bottom and just went, and then I went, and then did that 4 or 5 times, just grounding myself because I was out of control. And she modeled me. And that became the breakthrough moment where I could start to ground her. And then I used our hypnotic principles of anchoring, and I anchored the word breathe. So anytime I would see her in that state, because everything's state dependent, the state drives our emotions, drives our behavior. I would just say the word breathe, and she would go and start to get.
Nice.
And so we can use that kind of strategy with our clients, and I use it all the time with my clients. Just I start most of my sessions in a grounded space, because if they're not grounded and you don't have them at a peak performance learning level, then they don't do as well. When I was at Hypnothoughts, kind of a funny story. Can I tell it to you?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay. So when I was speaking, this year at Hypnothoughts, I was honored to speak for the 4th time. I had 2 presentations, and the first one was on possibility thinking. And I got in the elevator and I almost got stuck in the elevator, and I'm like rushing to go speak, get to the conference room to speak. And you only have 10-minute window to switch speakers. So I was kind of distressed, and I went in, was trying to get it set up. I was, people were there. I had a packed room, people standing room only. And so I said, you know what? I'm just going to start with the Gabby pose. And I said, I know this sounds maybe selfish, everyone, but I need to ground myself. And I'd like to teach you a process that I taught my daughter that helped her. And then if you're willing, join in with me. And everybody did. And they all got grounded, and they got back to the center. And I got back to the center because I knew I couldn't speak from that place of being all like this. That's just not me. And so I think it was a breakthrough moment for a lot of the people in the room too, just because they learned the importance of getting grounded first. I studied under Igor Ledachowski and Steve Ream, and Igor talks about what he calls, going first. And we've got to get into that right space and create that space so we're holding that for the client to transform. And so I had to do that before I could speak. And it went really well. I mean, people were really impressed. So
Yes, it sounds like the Gabby protocol may be your next book there, Matthew.
well, well, this has been my challenge, to be honest. I have this other book, and it ties in my other daughter, Hannah. And it's called Looking for the Order, Not the Disorder. Because so many times we're always, and even as a trained therapist, we're always looking for what's broken and not seeing what works and what what resiliency people have. And autistic individuals, like my daughter, they bring a different perspective to the world that only they can see and understand. They can teach us a lot if we're open to it, but we have to be open to it. So if we reframe it and start looking for the order instead of the disorder in these individuals. I don't even like to call it a disability. I call it an other ability. It's like their superhero power, but they just haven't been taught to own it. When I'm working with an ADHD client, for example, I'll tell you a strategy I came up with that works brilliantly for young people. They're in school and they have to write projects and papers. And the way the ADHD mind is, it's kind of always racing out here in front of them. Well, and so medications can slow that down so they can kind of be more in the present, but they can learn skills to do that too. But they're kind of like an architect. They can see the building when it's all done. Their challenge is to go room by room and build it. And one of the most famous cases of ADHD was the guy that started Kinko's. He's brilliant, but he's really ADHD. And so what he did is he saw the vision of Kinko's and this is in the day and age when, when I was in college, we had 4 computers for 400 students. We didn't have a personal computer. You had to go to the computer room, write your paper, print it out. And I want to tell the young people this, we didn't have spell check. So, and I probably would have had a higher GPA if we did, because I can't spell and I have a master's degree. But that was the biggest thing. My professor kept telling me, if you could spell, you get a higher grade. But so anyway, he brilliantly set up these centers next to college campuses where people could get on a personal computer, have a printer, and they could be on up at nighttime because students kind of stay up late. And so that was just a real benefit for college students in that area. And he started setting them up all around the country. But he was brilliant enough to know that he couldn't run the day-to-day activities. That was just not his domain, his wheelhouse. So he hired good people to run and manage the center, and he'd go off and create another one. And so what I realized is that they have this great, what I call previewing skill. They see the end product and they see it done. And I've asked a lot of my ADHD clients and they're like, yep, that's true. And so I teach them to reverse engineer it. So when a student's writing a paper, what I ask them to do is begin with the conclusion. Because what's the conclusion of the paper? It's a summary of the body. And what's the body? Well, that's the main meat of the project. And then you've got the introduction. And what's the introduction? It's grabbing the person's attention or kind of explaining what the concept is you're going to explain in the body. When they write it backwards, bam, their paper's done. When they try to write it forward, they're stuck for days. And I've done this over and over and over with clients. And a lot of these things I came to figure out, again, working with my daughter who has other abilities. And also my other daughter, Hannah, who she's just brilliant. I mean, to tell you how brilliant she is, she read the DSM-5, which is our diagnostic manual in psychiatry and psychology, in 2 weeks. I don't know psychologists that haven't read it yet, so it's like, and so, I had this contrast of 2 daughters and it's just amazing to see young people and how, in one family you could have such diversity. So that's my second book. And I debate which one I need to come out with first, because one day I start writing on this one and the other day I get over here. I really just want to birth the first one because I know it's like birthing a baby. It's just, it's been in gestation long enough, I think. So
Time to get it done. And speaking about getting it done, how do our viewers get a hold of you?
Well, they can reach out to me. I have a web page that I'm working to rebuild. It's McMillanMatthew.com. It's just my name backwards. They can, you know, go there. I'm also rebuilding I spend all my time and energy, one, taking care of my family, and other, building my practice. So I'm not that technical. So I'm working on that field because I've been seeing clients locally, but now I want to help more people and get on bigger stages and help more people. So I'm working on that. So just forgive me if it's a little bit antiquated when you go there, but it has the information you need. Um, I have a YouTube channel as well, Impact4Today. And but I'm working on, like I said, to get some products out, and I'll be happy to come back and let you know when they're out and let your viewers know. I'm also got honored to speak in Chicago at the Mid-America Hypnosis Conference. So
I'll see you there.
yeah, so we'll be doing and shaking this year. So
Now, speaking of all this stuff, and you talked about your daughters and everything, how's your wife navigating through all this stuff?
well, unfortunately, I'm divorced. But this sounds strange to a lot of people, but I'm happily divorced. And people go, I've never met a happily divorced person. I say, well, I am. I mean, it just, sometimes it just doesn't work. And it's better to let that person find the love and person that works for them than to stay in a relationship that doesn't work. That's my belief. So um, she's moved on, and I have to, and you know, but um, that's kind of where that is.
Nice. Nice. Well, you've got a lot going on, Matthew. We've got all kinds of things that are happening here. And it's nice that you're focusing on those books because we all know what you focus on expands. Kind of
That's
like
true.
what you were talking about with working with the autism. They have them redirect their focus. A lot of
Yep,
work with identity. I see.
correct.
So, man, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. We certainly enjoyed it. Scott, do you have any other questions for Matthew?
Matthew, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule and spending it with us. We really appreciate it.
Sure. Can I ask you a question there, Jason?
Sure.
So, with your FFL program, how did you come to get your program created? What was the inspiration for you?
Matthew, that's a whole podcast in itself. But but
Okay.
let me tell you this. Our lives and the experiences we go through and the transformations we make and the
Mhm.
resilience that we have is all part of our story. And when we put all that together, it creates the whole package.
That's true.
And that's kind of what it's all about. And speaking of that, we're not through with you yet, Matthew, because we're traveling down your highway, not mine. And I'd love to chat more.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Definitely.
I got a big question for you.
Oh
The
no.
big question for you.
Uh-huh.
What's your words of wisdom for our viewers?
Hmm. Words of wisdom. Gosh, man, you did catch me off guard. Well, the words of wisdom I would have for you is it's kind of like if you're a Star Wars fan, Yoda trained um, Luke to go into a cave where he faced his deepest fears. And we all have really deep fears. And sometimes we need a coach, a therapist, a guide, a hypnotherapist to guide us through that so that we can really move through it. And one of the principles that we need to realize and understand when we're stuck in something is we just got to keep our feet moving and look and ask. I mean, one of the things I'll tell them myself, I'm a giver. I know that by by just who I am. One of the most challenging things I had to do is learn to allow and receive. And so I invite your audience to, allow people to come into their life and then to receive their gifts, whether it's coaching or a program or something, so they can transform their lives. Because we all I'll do this with you as an experiment. Do you have a pen, you and Scott? Okay. I want you to take this pen and I want you to stick it to the back of your head, like it's Velcro there. So imagine it's stuck there. Now I want you to find it. And I don't care if you move all around, unless you have a mirror or a mentor, a coach, a therapist, a guide, that's a blind spot that you have, and you're not going to find it. And yet it could really, really change your life when you do. So I encourage you to realize that we all have blind spots. And if we take the time to allow other people to help us with that blind spot, we can move miles in our transformation. And I invite your folks to do that. And I'm glad that they're in your highway going down the road with you so they can have that transformation, because they're already making the first big step.
Nice. Wonderful. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I want to ask your friend there, Scott. He's a quiet type. But I'm curious, how did you decide to support Jason in this venture?
We did it together.
We were both in school together, and we think a lot alike. We're creators, and we sort of feed off of each other, and we're quite opposites. So we don't come from the same backgrounds at all. We're quite different, and those are our inherent strengths together. And we just like to find things, help people find things, just help people, explore themselves.
That's fantastic. Well, it's great because having a team with like a diversity, a lot of times leaders will only just pick people like themselves, and then they don't have a really robust team. So I could tell you're a great team.
Thank you. We certainly appreciate having you here too. That makes a nice threesome on the crowd.
I was so glad to have met you in Vegas. That was great.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Okay, Scott, anything else?
I'll see you in Chicago.
Fantastic. Nice. I'll look for you in my room.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, we certainly enjoyed traveling down your magical psyche highway, Matthew. And
thank you.
It's been great. And for our viewers out there, we're glad you got to take the ride with us. We hope you come back. Please subscribe. If you like us, give us the thumbs up. If you think we're assholes, we don't care. Just give us a thumbs down. We're just glad you're here, and we hope to see you next week. Thanks for coming.
Wow, what a trip. Thanks for taking that journey with us today. Please like us, share us, and enlighten us with your views of the topics we drove into today. We appreciate you and love reading your comments. Thanks again, and we hope to see you back on the bus next week. That's right.